Welcome to the
This
Blind
meeting is
Zone.
being recorded.
Welcome to the Blind Zone. What is a blind zone, you say? It's something that happens all of a sudden, or it's something that you refuse to see that was right in front of your face. Now, I know every week I tell you that I have special people, but I really do this week. These are some very, very dear friends from when I used to live in another state. And so they've agreed to come on today and tell their story because they were in the Maui wildfire. And they have a lot of stories that I could share about them, but they're two of the sweetest people I've ever known and two of the hardest, most disciplined Christians I've ever met, too. So now that I've given that big intro, they're real nervous now. But anyway, so go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started.
Well, I'm Teresa Turner.
And I'm Ronnie Turner.
and we know each other because we went to the same church. We were in a lot of Bible studies together. We were in a lot of small groups together. And in fact, Ronnie spoke at my husband's Celebration of Life service. So we've been very connected with them for quite a while. And so now I saw on Facebook that Teresa had posted that you were heading off to Maui for your anniversary. And I was like so excited because I know that you guys had traveled, quite a bit around the country, but this was like the first big trip that I'd known about you doing that. So I was super excited. And then I went on the news feed and saw about the Maui wildfire. And I was like, oh no, I think that's where Ronnie and Teresa went. So what anniversary was it that you were celebrating?
I would be the 20th. Actually, it's in November, but we wanted to go. Then. So it just God just took care of us through it. So it wouldn't have mattered when we went.
I think that's true because when I heard that you were going and had gone and then there was trouble, I texted Ronnie right away and then I started my prayer group right away. And so, a couple of preliminary questions. So, what date did you arrive? And when you got there, how soon after you got there did you find out that there was trouble?
We arrived on the 7th, probably got to our um, condo or whatever, probably around 4:30 or something, got a bite to eat, went grocery store, and just crashed. We'd been up for some 25 hours. We'd actually left our home about 2 o'clock in the morning, catch an early flight. So to pass a few things, I was already awake Maui time at 5 o'clock in the morning when the power went out. And then we talked about it, what to do that day. We didn't really want to hit the road again, but didn't know, much else to do if we were to come back and the power was out. So we took a drive actually back toward the center of Lahana. We were a little bit north of it. And actually, we didn't know that there were wildfires until later in the day. The Lord had just turned us around from the way we were going, and we couldn't get in. And we just turned around and went north. And finally, I don't know, several hours later, we found out that there were also wildfires.
Well, because I know when I saw that there were wildfires, I texted you and I said, I know that Facebook said, Teresa, you were going. Are you
Mhm.
okay? And you said, the power's out. Teresa's having a hard time getting her oxygen plugged in, and my phone's almost out of battery. And then I'm like, wow. So my sister said, well, when you texted him back, I said, I didn't text him back. He said his phone's out of battery. He doesn't need to hear from me. So I just got my friends together and we were praying for you. In fact, what I was praying for that you would be a light, a salt, and a witness, and that you would be safe. And so I'm anxious to hear the stories of how those prayers were answered because I know the two of you well enough to know that you were a light, a salt, and a witness in a very difficult situation. So what
Well,
happened next?
I'm sorry, were you,
What
did you
happened
say?
next?
Okay, well, I will address that and then let Teresa say it. I saw my wife being salt and light to so many people while we were there, while we were under duress anyway, talking to them, giving them directions after we finally got a room, inviting them to come to our room to shower, uh, all kinds of stuff. And I'll let her answer the rest of that question.
Well, we just, for myself, I'll say for myself, I could just see God in all of it. I mean, I really could. Every decision that we made, uh, uh, we tried to calmly talk it over and pray about it, and it really it ceased to be a vacation, and it became a time of survival, and not just for us, but for the residents there too. They were losing homes, and they were displaced themselves, and we all ended up, seemed like a lot of them ended up into the town that we eventually had to stay in, which was only 15 miles from the wildfire. I mean, the island of Maui is a very small island anyway. And
it was up in the thinner part of the island.
And you really weren't safe any direction you went, because the winds were like 60 to 80 miles an hour, they were saying, and it was just consuming everything that it touched. So we just know our God, and we knew that if we went home, that would be okay. I mean, we were going to win either way. We were either coming back to the States or back to the mainland, or we were going to go home and be with him. Saying we were okay with either one of those options.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and again, when I started to pray, it didn't even cross my mind what I needed to pray for. It was just like, oh no, I know them, and I know that they're going to be a light of salt to witness, but I want them to be safe in the process. And so, because my first question was, well, why would the airlines continue to fly people in if they know there's a problem? And I thought, yeah, that's not the question for this whole thing. That's an aside, because this is how, like you said, the hand of God was with you. So how did you ultimately find more electricity to hook up for your oxygen and your phone?
Well, we had traveled north. The place we were staying was kind of in the middle of the upper part that was narrow. So we took an upper path, which was an adventure in itself. It was like a 1-lane road, but it had 2 lanes of traffic, very not traveled very well, and not very much, I mean. And what was the question again? I'm sorry, I get off on tangents here.
It's fine. I just want you to explain a little more of what had happened. You know, you had got there, you saw immediately that there was a problem, you headed
Yeah.
out, and then you were steered back. And, you alluded to that, you let people come in and take showers and stuff. So how long was it until you found electricity to recharge Teresa's oxygen and your phone?
We got back to places where there were electricity fairly quickly going north, but there was still no place to charge the battery. We went that whole day until that evening, when we couldn't find a hotel or something, that one of the hotels let us sit in their lobby and charge our electronic devices.
Mm-hmm. So how many people were you encountering at this point? Because I'm sure those hotels were now then overrun from the places where the fire actually was.
There was people everywhere, Denise. there was lines of people trying to get a hotel room and being turned away. And as I sat there in this lobby charging my air, I saw several other people that were in there, whole families that were in there, and they were like us. They had no place to go. And Ronnie had snagged us a room online, and we went to check in, and they said, no, it's for tomorrow night. So
I guess the app had just jumped over to the first night available, and I didn't notice. In my eagerness, I popped it.
yeah,
And so we were without a place to stay, and eventually wound up sleeping in the car in a parking lot with several other people. A lady befriended us and says, we're going to stay in this lighted area tonight. And in between our car and your car, there's a family with 4 kids, and we're all kind of watching out for each other.
yeah. So we just huddled down and did what we had to do to make it through the night. And go ahead.
What about the original place that you were set to stay in? Why did you leave that? And was it out of necessity you left, or what? I guess what caused the looking around for a new place?
Yeah. Well, see, that's where the electricity was off. There was no electricity. Yeah. There was no electricity. We left to find electricity and to find food, because the night before when we got there and we had went to the grocery store, I mean,
only for snacks.
And we were so tired, we didn't even do that. We just, it was like, you know, this old woman was tired. I was ready for bed.
We had woken up, and I asked them at the place we were staying, I said, is this just us? Is it local? I said, no, it's for a long way. And so every stoplight in town was turned into a 4-way stop. And then when we got to a major intersection, the police were directing traffic. And even after we got through it, it was a mess. So we just turned around. We had considered going to the beach and that day. That's kind of what we'd planned on doing. And Teresa, since electricity was out, Teresa said, well, if we go get oiled up at the beach and we come home and there's no hot water, we're going to be greasy going to try to finish the day, you know. So that's the way we turned around and went the opposite direction.
Yeah.
We were headed straight into the main part of Lahaina. The place that we were staying had a Lahaina address, but it was actually north of the main part of town.
Okay, so but when you left the place without any electricity, did you take everything with you at that point, or did you anticipate?
No,
we didn't know about the fires at all at that point, just that the electricity was out.
Our stuff is still there.
Yeah.
Any chance you're going to
not burn?
Yeah. Are they going to send it to you, I think?
They're saying yes, they will. They are currently, they've moved all of our stuff out and everybody's, and they are currently housing 35 families in this condo resort.
From people that lost their homes.
Yeah.
They didn't have now on the plane back, I sat beside a guy that was a little bit north of even where we were, and he said that they were out of electricity for 3 days. And the lady that I've talked to on the phone said that they don't have mail service even over on that side of the island. But that's been a few days ago. So,
So when you got there, your first impression before the wildfire, were you like, oh, this is really beautiful, we're really glad we came? And so what prompted you to pick Maui?
Well, it was a bucket list for me. So, which is no longer on my bucket list, by the way.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
It was a bucket list. And honestly, when the plane started descending into Hawaii, I was like, oh no, we're in trouble because you think of Hawaii as being this big, lush, green vegetation and uh, grass skirts and and they're just people like us and they bleed red too. And but it was like we were out into a desert area.
Was probably lava and all
And
this stuff that hadn't grown.
yeah, and there was a lot of lava rock there. But now,
Just on the particular side that we flew in on.
yeah,
Now, where we stayed, it was
where
very
we
beautiful.
stayed, it was very beautiful. There was uh, coconut trees right growing up right next to our balcony. We had a balcony that uh, you could enter from two different doors, and these trees. We were in the treetops, so it was just really it was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you ever make it down to the beach at all?
No.
No.
I didn't think so. Not after thinking, no,
Well,
I'd be
it
greasy
was
for a while.
Never stuck my toe in the water or foot in sand.
kind of like Teresa was saying. It's like after we knew that so many people were having trouble, and we weren't that far from where everything was happening, it just didn't seem right to go on, quote, partying or not partying. That's a bad word, but enjoying ourselves that much and all the devastation being over there.
Yeah, there was just so much. Yeah, vacation truly ended. We got there Monday night and it ended Tuesday afternoon when the reality of everything that was going on actually hit, and we found out because every time we'd stop somewhere, we'd hear a little more.
Yeah.
And we heard, well, there's 30 electric poles down. Well, I used to work at the electric company and I know what it's like to have 30 electric poles down. You're probably going to be out of service for a week or longer.
And we saw a lot of lines on the ground. I mean, no spark or no fires around those particular ones, but there were lines down everywhere.
Yeah. And then
I'm sorry. So you stayed the night in the car, and then the next night you got into your hotel. And how many nights did you stay there?
3.
Yeah, we had tried to. We went to the airport and tried to get an earlier flight off because, of course, there was nobody coming in
by Thursday.
Yeah, by Thursday they were not letting anybody in. But they were sending in extra planes so they could get more out because we were depleting they have an estimated, I read, 8,000 visitors a day coming in to Hawaii. So, to Maui. And so we just, they stopped that process and they ended up sending in a lot of extra planes and trying to get the visitors off because we were depleting the resources that the people had to have, and there was the Walmart parking lot Thursday morning or what, Wednesday night maybe.
Yeah,
Wednesday night. It just looked like a third world country. I mean, it did. People had the backs of their cars open, their trunks. They spent the night there. They were laying out on the little strips of land, between the parking spaces under shade trees. And the wind was still up at that point, but it wasn't nothing like the day before, like Tuesday. It was it had calmed down some, but it's always windy around the ocean anyway. So
So was the air quality real smoky and, was that affecting your breathing?
Yes, the air quality was bad. So I just, we just tried to stay in. We left after we got up on Wednesday morning after spending the night. We went to a mall of all places, and we sat out in. They had it was an open mall, but it also had a big air conditioned room off of the food court. So, and there was a lot of plugs in there. So we actually went there and recharged everything and just waited till 4 o'clock for our room.
Mm-hmm. So
So
what other things did you come across that you could honestly say the hand of God? Where were you, where you were, the light, the salt, and the witness?
I can,
go ahead.
Teresa, I don't know, some of the, for instance, some of the restaurants had long lines. So we mostly, most of the time, uh, ate at fast food places just to get in and get out and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
some of them had like keypads on their bathroom doors, and I suspect it was to keep people out that weren't customers or something.
Mm-hmm.
So Teresa had known the code, so we had sat near the bathroom door. So she was telling the people that came up the codes when they were come in and talked to different ones. She met a resident there.
Yeah.
There was there was a McDonald's in Walmart. We were at Walmart every day almost to buy clothes for the next day. It seemed like, because at first I held out hope that we were going to get back into our place to get our stuff, which we never did. But I was standing in line getting us ice cream, and I noticed Teresa kind of disappeared from where she was. And I come around, she was sitting with this lady. And the lady was actually a resident. She had brought her sweet potatoes in and got her a drink. And she was sitting there eating her lunch. And I find out some things after the fact. You can tell her story if you would.
Yeah,
Teresa.
she was just a precious soul. She uh, she had come in, she had rode the bus in to go to the doctor, and she needed her breathing medication because she didn't have air conditioning, and she's having to keep her
asthma,
and she has to keep her doors and everything closed. So she was not faring real well. So she had come in and to do that and bought her a few groceries, but she didn't have a vehicle and she didn't have air conditioning. She didn't have a TV. So she didn't know the severity of everything that was.
But she was a sweet soul. She was happy.
She was happy, and we talked and talked, and she had invited me to sit down with her at the beginning, and we just sat there and talked like we'd known each other all of our life. And when we started to leave, we got up and we just hugged each other, and I kissed her on the cheek, told her I loved her.
Well, because but that just speaks to who you are. Because again, you are two of the most gracious, kind people that I know. But I knew that Ronnie was going to do whatever it took to protect Teresa. So I knew in that, for that part, you would be okay. So why didn't they let you just go back in and get your stuff? Was the original place you were at? Why didn't they just let you come back and get your stuff and call it a day?
you couldn't get into the area. The fires were still, well, there was more than one fire. They had
Yeah.
fires in the upcountry, and I think Lahaina actually had at least a couple there, and they couldn't maintain them. And then after they did, there were bodies and stuff within that area, and investigations and rescue efforts and all that stuff that.
So it was a safety issue then. They couldn't trust that you could
Yeah,
get in and get back out.
yeah.
Exactly. Some people actually got arrested for breaking down the barricade, trying to get back in to get their stuff, And
Go ahead.
yeah, and I'm like, that stuff can be replaced. Hey, I've just
Even the residents in a couple days later, I think it was, and they just started going over barriers and stuff, and then they blocked the roads even off again. It was only for the residents to go back in at that particular time, and then they stopped it again, and then I understand that they let them back in later. And there's been they have some beliefs that, where people are buried or people are dead or whatever, it becomes kind of sacred ground. There's some kind of belief in that.
Yeah, the governor even we saw him on TV from our room after we got a room, and he was saying, he said, we are going about this with as much dignity as we can, and we are trying to, said, we cannot just go rushing in there and start bulldozing things. He said, that's not the way this is going to work. He said, this is sacred ground. Said, we have people that have lost their lives in this. So he was he seemed to be a very kind-hearted man and really
well, it was days,
understanding.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, it was days after we had returned home. Of course, we'd probably been home a week or more before they gave a final body count or anything, and the fires still burned for days, even after we were home at different places. They would flare up. From what I've read, the low humidity and the power lines and stuff, down on the ground, and it being dry. The way I understand it, the east side of the island, it's funny, it's so narrow, but the east side of the island gets more rain than the west side does. And the west side was dry. And we saw that because when the wind was so brisk, you would just see clouds of dust and stuff going even across the water.
Yeah.
Well, and when you were there, did you feel like you had enough information from whoever was in charge so that you felt like you knew what was happening? Or because, like you said, you heard after you had gotten home, but when you were there, did you feel like you were informed?
No.
Well,
We were. Go ahead.
We were informed.
Our kids.
By our kids, actually. Yeah. We
well, we were out trying to either get clothes, get food, or we finally found a shelter that had doctors in it that got some of Teresa's medications for. We were out doing that stuff, and our kids were anxiously kind of watching what was going on there, and they would actually tell us more of what was going on than we actually knew from personal experience. So we did kind of know what was going on, but it was through what media was on stateside, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I had heard, again, I wasn't there, and I was just watching some news feeds because I don't have a TV, but some of the news feeds were single line of traffic going out of town. Everybody was stalled on the road. So how was traffic?
When we were going south on Tuesday morning, it was horrendous.
It was awful.
And and so that's the point we turned around and went north from Kahului, where the airport is. If you could go straight across to Lahaina, it's only like 15 miles, but you either have to go a loop south or a loop north to get there. So when we eventually got back around the north and hit Kahului and come back south trying to make that loop is when we encountered some more traffic. So really you got Lahaina kind of in the middle on the west side, and most people are trying to get it from the south because going north, there's some resorts and stuff, but then to come all the way around the north, it's not a good way to come around. So most people are going to the south. So you're being just kind of blocked on both sides.
Yeah.
And just could not get in there. We saw the smoke and stuff. We didn't see any actual flames. You know how smoke is, you kind of see it, and then you think, oh, it's around this curve. Oh, it's not around this curve. Well, it's over this hill. No, it's not. And we finally just got dead stopped when we came around the south loop. And we sit there for a long period of time, prayed about it, whatever, and it turned around and went back.
So then what day because I think I read on Facebook that you flew out on that, you flew in on a Monday and you flew out on Saturday. Was that your anticipated date of departure anyway?
Yes.
We tried to get out on Thursday because they had sent in some extra flights, but by the time we had gotten to the airport, they said there were no flights that day or Friday. We might as well. Now, what they did ask us at the counter was, are you looking for a return flight home? And we said yes. Now I don't know if there were flights where they would have flown us somewhere else to the mainland, and then we could have hopped a flight a day or two later, to somewhere else. But that's the question that we actually asked. So there were no flights coming, return flights as we had asked for, I guess I should say.
So was there any other thing that really stood out in your mind as far as, well, and again, you're both very personable people, and you met the one lady, and I'm sure that you helped as many as you could along the way. So is there any other stories like that you want to share?
Well, from the opposite side of it, we saw other people take care of us. The Thursday when we were trying to get out of the airport, we were in line with the full service line because we had to go through all the hoops, This guy was right beside of us. His name was JR, which I've had contact with him since we've been back. He said, hey, man, there's a shelter over there we're staying at, and said there's doctors there. He said, if you get her there, they'll get her some medication, which Teresa was still in pain, from her shoulder surgery back on June the 30th, and was having spasms in her arm and stuff. But so we had them sewing into our lives. And we had a lady the first night that we spent, the night we actually spent in a car, we had just pulled into this area to discuss what to do. And she walks right up and said, hey, are y'all displaced from Lahaina? We said, yes. And she said, well, we're just going to hang out here in this lighted area if you want to join us. And we all just kind of watched out for each other. Not only that day, but the next day we kind of hung out together until we got our room. And then Teresa offered them, hey, we've got a room. If y'all don't get one, come to our room, shower. If you want to sleep on the floor, whatever, you can do that too. So
her name is Betsy, and we called her Betsy from Colorado.
And we just talked to her.
And I have talked to her several times since we've been back too.
So what was the big takeaway for you for this whole thing, other than you probably won't take another anniversary trip there?
Well, God's just got us. Denise. It matters not where you're at, what your situation is. You may not see it. You may not know why. You may not have a reason, but I know that God had us that whole time. He turned us around. We ended up within 2 miles of the airport where we stayed. That was a God thing. When we first got there, we had this beautiful condo that it was a 1 bedroom, had a huge new walk-in shower. Well, we're both tub people, so I told Ronnie, I said, "Well, we can do anything for a week, so we'll just have to deal with taking a shower." And I had been sleeping in the recliner since I had my shoulder surgery because I couldn't get comfortable in bed. I couldn't lay. I just wasn't sleeping at all. And so actually, Ronnie let me try to take all the pillows. I had about 6 pillows that first night and tried to prop up in bed. And I put my neck pillow on that I had for the plane and tried to sleep like that. So I didn't sleep any while we were there anyway. But
yeah, I can imagine sleeping in a car is like that has to be a fairly uncomfortable adventure too.
yeah.
Man.
But then when we got our room on Wednesday night, when we got there, we opened that door to that hotel room, and there was a recliner. I have never seen a recliner in a hotel, in a condo. I've never seen one. You're lucky if you get a extra padded chair. And so I said, well, I looked at Ronnie and I said, okay, let's go look at the bathroom. And I had a tub. So I was praising God over that recliner in that bathtub. I'm telling you, it was a godsend. And just little things like that. It was like everybody was everybody was trying to take care of everybody. Everybody was being kind. Nobody was pushing and shoving. And we ran into one belligerent woman at the rental car place. And that's another story.
But that was about it.
That was about it. And I saw one man sticking stuff in his pockets at Walmart. And I thought, well, buddy, somebody's probably watching you on camera. So other than that, everybody just kind of went out of their way to help each other. And it just really shows the heart of humanity when it comes right down to the nitty gritty. When it gets right down to it, people are there. People are being human. They're being real. They're, you hold the door, you say thank you, and God bless you. This sort of thing. It was awesome. Tia had called and had my air pharmacist to email me a copy of my medications. So I took that to the doctor at the
shelter.
At the shelter. Thank you. I couldn't say the word. At the shelter, and they were over and above. They were amazing. It was just amazing. And they gave me enough medicine to last me even 3 or 4 days after we got home. So he said, I know you're not going to feel like running out to the drugstore when you get home. So, and just, I mean, everybody was just helping one another. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And I hope a lot of other people could see that as well.
And
I'm sorry, go on, Ronnie.
oh, I was just going to say, and I guess mine was that, I worry about things sometimes. I wonder, do I make this decision or that decision? Did I make a mistake there? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like God had us covered when we didn't even know we needed to be covered.
Yeah.
And so whether I live in that or not, I have that knowledge now, so I hope to be a little bit less trying to control outcomes. And because God had us the whole time that we were there.
Yeah.
So when you got back on the plane and you were finally heading back to Tennessee, and so how long did it take after you got home to decompress from the whole adventure? Because I'm sure, because I had said to somebody at the church, well, Ronnie and Teresa need to stand up and tell their testimony, because I think people would be very interested to hear all the ways God had his hand on you. Because I think that's, for one, I think that people will remember when they're going through tough times that, how we look at it in the real world and how it is in the spiritual world. They're two different things.
Yeah.
So how long after you got home did it take you to decompress from all the activity and stress of that whole adventure?
Well, the first part, we got home about 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, we got home about 3 a.m. Sunday morning, and we just got this walked in, put down what little we had. Tia had done come to the house and left us a key to get in because Ronnie's keys were in the safe there in Maui. So she cut her air back down so the house would be good and cool. And she had been watching her dog. She left her dog here at home. So we just came in and put what little we had down and crashed.
We played hooky from church the next day.
Well, for one, this is just because I know the people at that church. Everybody would have been like, they would have just swarmed you. Nobody would have got anything done. And Isaac should have just sat down and said, well, we'll wait till you're all done. And, so it's probably the best thing to do,
Yeah. No, it was, I did put out a little something on Facebook and just ask, people to give us just a few days to get back, to get rested up, get back. We'd be glad to talk with people we don't care to, but we needed a few days.
Yeah, I saw it on Facebook. And so I'm sure you noticed that I was very generous. I waited 4 days before I contacted Ronnie and said, hey, I'd like to interview for the Blind Zone. So,
well, my yard was yelling at me when I got back. Mow me, please. So reality hit pretty quick getting back. So for me, anyway.
Yeah. I took the time because I'm the type that during the middle, while you're going through a crisis, I'm fine. I got it covered. I'm fine. I will forge through. But when we got on that plane to head back to the mainland, I broke down. I cried then. It was just, and I could have kissed the soil in this hot, muggy, steamy Tennessee weather we were having at the time when we got to Tennessee. I'd never been so proud to be home in my life, I don't think. But it was an experience. It certainly be one we won't forget.
So
But
what's your next trip?
oh, I don't know. We're not even talking about that yet.
Not next trip. Well, this has been fabulous. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap this up? Because again, I really appreciate your time because people want to know and they have a lot of other questions. But for me, I just wanted I knew that the hand of God was with you because I prayed for it and I knew that it would happen. And so I wanted people to hear those stories so that again, when they're going through something what they're doing, they can trust that, God is with them as well. So anything else before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. We did get interviewed by our local radio station, and they're fixing to put something in there. Tell it. I mean, it took us like an hour and a half to talk to him, but they're going to have it in the paper and the newspaper in a condensed version. Yes.
Okay, WJLE.
Yeah.
So for me, it is good to see you again, and you're such a special lady. You're just a go-getter and so brilliant, and we just love you.
Yes, I wish we could hug you right now, girl.
Well, and I had friends last night. We were testing the Zoom system, and then I had internet problems, and there was 4 of us on, and I said, look, if this doesn't go well, one of you is just going to drive me over to Tennessee, and we're going to do this in person, one way or another. I have to see the
Yeah.
it all worked well. So anyway, thank you. I love you both to death because I had been asking people, who has really rock solid marriages, and I can only think of a handful, and you're one of those that are in there. So maybe at some other point I'll interview for you about your marriage because you have a very special relationship and you've meant so much to me over the years, just in what we've been through. And so again, I super appreciate you both and your kindness to me too.
Well, we love you, Denise.
Well, thanks. So again, thanks for joining me on the Blind Zone. And I don't know who's coming on next week because it's, the privilege of God to put people in front of me. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week on the Blind Zone.
Bye.
Okay. Did it stop recording?
That's what I'm trying to do now. I'll see if I can edit it.
No, I'm not worried about that.
Let's see. Here we go. Well, it won't take my finger at once. A button. Stop recording.